Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Committee of the Whole meeting of December 11th. Just a couple announcements. The Salvation Army kettles are out, so if you're out and about, make sure you have a couple bucks in your pocket to donate and help those less fortunate in this season. And as well, Christmas in the Coulee. It was, oh my goodness, just absolutely amazing. And congratulations to all the people involved. It went through the Atlas Coal Mine up the Tipple, 40,000 lights, then over to the East Coulee School Museum. It was just beautiful. Put it on your calendar. If you missed it this year, you gotta go. So congratulations to all those organizers. It's just, we are so blessed in this community. So thank you to everyone for what you do. All right, is there any additions to the agenda? No, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented, please, Tom?
I move to adopt the agenda for the December 11th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting as presented.
Seconder, Stephanie, all in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes on November 14th? Crystal.
I move to approve the minutes for November 14th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting as presented.
Seconder, Lisa, comments? Patrick?
Just one quick fix for the long service medals. Captain Randy Fournier instead of Fourier. Just a typo.
Tony?
Just one change on motion 2023.290. It's been first and seconded by Councillor Price.
All right, does anybody recall? My notes would have it, but I don't have them. Okay, can we just make a friendly?
We could just
go ahead.
We could also find it on the. We could find it on the video as well.
Okay,
if you
let's
wanted
do that.
to do it that
right
way and just make the correction once it's on the video, as amended from the video. If you'd like to make that change for the motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, Crystal, you made the motion to accept the minutes. Friendly amendment of the minutes.
I do.
Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
It's another spelling error on number 2. It says opening nets.
Thank you. And to those who wonder if the council reads their minutes, their agendas, they do. So make sure they're right. All right, Crystal, you accept the friendly amendment?
I do accept that friendly amendment.
And Lisa, you accept the seconder of it? All right, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to 6.1.1, please, Daryl.
Denise is taking that.
Okay, Denise.
So what we have before you is the agenda or the meeting schedule for 2024. What we'd like to do is bring it forward so that you can see what we've done. One of the changes that we've made is often in the summer we will cancel the committee of the whole meetings, and what Mitch has done is actually just pulled those meeting minutes, pulled those meetings right off of the schedule for the time being. So at this time, it's really to let you see it, also give the public a preview of what our meetings will look like. If you have comments or would like to see changes, you can let us know. We will bring it back for approval at the next meeting.
Okay, council, any comments? No, I think actually looks really good, so well done. You can bring it forward. Okay, let us move on. Our special guest, our CMP Staff Sergeant Robert Harms. Welcome to Council Chambers. And as always, we enjoy your presentation, so I will let you take over.
Well, thank you very much for that. And I think it's been a little while since I've been here, but always great to be here and see everybody. Tonight, I just want to touch a little bit on the quarterly report that I submitted. That's the quarterly report for our Q2 results. Just a reminder, our fiscal year actually ends March 31st. So when I report these, it's not in calendar year, it's in our fiscal year. So again, this is second quarter. I'm not going to make a whole lot of reference to specifics on the report. I'll just kind of keep it general. But one part that I do want to touch on that we haven't spent a lot of time on in the past is kind of some finance and budgetary information. Again, I'm just going to summarize some of that, but that's kind of what I want to talk about here today. On the cover sheet, the highlight on the cover sheet is simply that the RCMP has been testing body worn cameras. It is a very much needed and welcome tool, again, about transparency and things like that. Unfortunately, the camera that we had selected and put into field testing did not make the grade, sort of thing. So that cover letter is just talking about how we're moving to phase 2, which is I guess a second choice camera, sort of thing. So hopefully we'll have those before too long. Moving along in the report, again, the report just summarizes some meetings, community contacts, and things like that. Some of the highlights on those would be that we held a round of town hall meetings in September, including in Drumheller. All went fairly well. Not real big crowds that showed out, but again, it's always good to see everybody and get that little bit of input that we do get. So I think one of the other highlights there is we had an open house barbecue at the end of August, and that went over absolutely fabulously, and we quite enjoyed that, and it was good to see everyone. I will move on to the community priorities section. I had a look at these today. I'm quite pleased with where we stand right now with our priorities. Basically, we're meeting or exceeding the targets that we set at the start of the fiscal year, just about in every category. We're falling a little bit short with some of our compliance checks on prolific offenders. But with that said, I knew that was a pretty aggressive target, and it doesn't change anything. We're going to keep doing as many as we can, and all in all, things are going quite well there. I couldn't be more pleased. Going to move along to the statistics. I'm now on page, if you're following along, I think it's on page 8. Just summarizes our quarterly results. Again, really favorable results. I'm very pleased with this. If you look at the blue section, July to September, we're comparing our second quarter to last year's second quarter. And in a nutshell, total criminal code offenses are down 44%. With that said, we've seen a 31% reduction in persons crimes, a 50% reduction in property crime, and a 40% reduction in other crimes. So I couldn't be more pleased with that. There's some other breakdowns there, but that's kind of the highlights. The bottom line is we're seeing some great reductions. I'd like to say that my detachment's fully responsible for that and want them to take credit. I won't go quite that far, but I know the good things that we're working on and the detachment priorities are definitely contributing to that. So especially our work with the prolific offenders and things like that. So very pleased with that. If you ever want a real good snapshot of the statistics, the one document that I always refer to, and you'll have to kind of go towards the latter part of the package here. I think it's the third last page, but it's the crime gauge page. That's the one with all the big arrows on it. If you have that before you, again, that's just a snapshot of where we're at. And the difference between this one and what I just went through is this one's actually comparing year-to-date results. So from January to September of this year compared to that same time period last year. And again, arrows pointing down and that are green are a great sign. So for the year, we're seeing a 17% reduction in persons crimes, 24% reduction of property crimes, and 20% in other crimes. So I'm very pleased with that. The bottom 3 arrows is just a breakdown of property crime because there's always a keen interest on break and enters, which is a 24% decrease. Thefts, there's a 15% decrease. Theft of motor vehicles, 15% decrease, and a 42% decrease in theft under. So absolutely fabulous results. I couldn't be more pleased with that. Is there any questions about the statistics before I move on to the next part?
Lisa?
Thank you. So I just wonder, do you think that the reduction in property crime is due to a feeling of apathy or people getting upset and just getting used to it?
So that's a great question. I've had that question several times over the years. Um, there could be a small degree of that. I suspect if there is, I suspect it's a small amount. And the reason I say that is um, it's difficult to accept that people won't report break and enters to their home. Uh, I'm most certain they won't report theft of their vehicles and so on, and that's in those categories. Maybe some petty crime. Some people might not feel inclined to report that. That's very very possible. That's a measurement that we will never totally understand where we're at with that. Now, with that said, I will say that I've been made aware of some social media posts and so on, and sometimes monitoring social media is a way to kind of measure how we're doing, right? And I will say, from what I've seen, there's always some criticism about policing and the RCMP, but I think it's at a fairly minimal level right now. If it was at a high level, maybe that would be the case, but I don't think it is. I think for the most part, people are reporting when things happen. So I do chalk up our prolific offender checks and the search warrants we're doing with drug work to this. We know that a lot of people we deal with and that are committing these crimes are repeat offenders. And quite honestly, long story short, we don't leave those people alone when they're not in jail. We are at their houses, their place of residence. We're checking on them. We're monitoring what they're doing. And this is probably one of the most aggressive detachments I've worked at as far as doing those checks. And I really think that's contributing to some of these decreases that we're seeing. Yeah, you're welcome.
Tom?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, is that I think there is a very high correlation between the success that your members are having monitoring these prolific offenders and some of these reductions, because as we say, I mean, 1% of the people are doing 90% of these crimes. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's our theory, and that's the advantage of checking on the repeat offenders. I'm just looking in my priorities section. In the quarter, we checked 102. Uh, we've done 102 checks on prolific offenders just in the quarter, for a total of 486 year to date. So that's a fairly aggressive number. Like I say, I think we're one of the better detachments, probably in the province, as far as doing that. So it's paying off, I do believe. Yeah.
All right, we'll let you
Okay.
carry on.
Very well. Thank you for that. The last part I wanted to touch on is a part that I don't spend a lot of time on when I've come to previous council meetings, and that's finance and budget. And I know it's been a little bit painful in the past year or two, as far as absorbing and dealing with that increased cost of policing. Unfortunately, I want to be very, very transparent with everybody, and I want to let everybody know that it's not getting better as we go forward. Um, I did submit a summary page in the package that you have before you. At the top, it's called Contract Policing Multi-Year Financial Plan. We did wrap up our multi-year financial planning a few months ago, and when we do this, we try to our very best to estimate uh, and forecast what the cost of policing will do. And right now, there is a whole bunch of things coming into play that are impacting the cost of policing. And that includes things like replacing outdated databases, computers, especially equipment. We need to upgrade a whole pile of operational equipment, not to mention just the general inflation on everything that we're dealing with um, is really taking its toll on costs. But on the bottom of that sheet, I drew a little arrow, and I hope everyone has it there in front of them, but it's just above that final box. It says total costs after financial adjustments, and it just breaks down what the current cost of policing is. So we're in the fiscal year of 23-24, and we're at 1.8 million right now. That's what the town is paying. Unfortunately, forecasting for the next 5 fiscal years is showing some pretty significant increases. And for example, the next fiscal year we're at 1.97. The next year is 2.12. The next year is 2.26, and it goes on 2.32, and eventually we're at 2.37 as far as cost of policing. So if my math is right, basically the increases that we're seeing year to year, for example, next year is a 6.2% increase. Then we go into a 7.4% increase after that, 6.4, 2.6, and eventually 2.4. It really adds up to a fairly significant cost, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and again, I know it's painful to see these numbers. It's painful to actually even deliver these numbers, but that is the reality of kind of where policing is going right now. So I know you're in some important budgetary talks and things like that, and I think it's a fitting time just to point that out. So I just wanted to be transparent with that. Is there any questions about that, or what's driving that, or?
Could we get those increases again? Because obviously that's going to affect our message
Yep.
as well.
Yeah. Um, so right now we're at 1.8, 1.86. The next year is 1.97. The following year is 2.12. The year after is 2.26. Then 2.32, and then 2.37 in the 28-29 fiscal year. And that's as far as we forecasted right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, for the public.
Yeah. And there's a
Um,
whole bunch of things driving these costs, right from the cost of vehicles, the cost of maintaining those vehicles, wages obviously is one of our big ones. But there's absolutely nothing that's decreasing or holding steady. Everything is going up on for us. Yeah.
So is this just Drumheller's portion, or does it reflect Drumheller and the federal government's portion
So
altogether?
Our costing model is somewhat complex, and I'm by no means an expert at it, but the top portion of that sheet that you have talks about pooled resources. And that is every detachment with a population of 15,000 and under is that's basically the cost of all those detachments. And we pool those costs um, basically to control kind of the peaks and valleys of expenses sort of thing. And then we pay a portion as Drumheller detachment. We pay a portion of that based on, I guess you could say, per capita. So we have 11 established members in the detachment. So, that's the portion that we're paying for is for those 11 members, if that makes sense. And now that's on the pooled resources. And then additional costs get added to that on basically direct costs to the detachment. So wages being the biggest with members, and even the cost of guarding and things like that are quite significant. So those get factored into that on a 1-to-1 ratio, basically, if that makes sense.
Crystal?
Yeah, I just had one quick question in regards to training.
Mm-hmm.
There's quite a jump up from this current fiscal year to 24-25. Is that, but your members aren't changing, so is there like some specialized training that's gonna be happening that we're gonna
There
get?
is, yeah.
Okay.
So great question. So um, a good portion of the costs that I just went over uh, is because of new equipment that's coming in, and the equipment goes on and on as far as what it is. But just to give you an example, our sidearms desperately need to be replaced. Some of our rifles need to be replaced. Uh, right now, we're replacing our tasers, and these are very necessary changes because our pistols are outdated. They literally don't make parts for them anymore. the tasers that we were using, they don't make anymore. So it's literally changes that we have to make. Every time we make a change with equipment, we have to train our members and certify them specific to that piece of equipment. So yeah, training costs are going to skyrocket with that. Yeah.
Patrick?
Just a quick question with staffing levels. It shows that is this a floating target? Because it does actually show us gaining over the next 5 years or whatever, at least one more member equivalent. Is that sort of a range, or
Yeah.
are we
So
actually adding?
yeah. So good point on that. In our 5 year uh, our planning and projections, there is a new position written into the detachment, so an increase of one position for the 25-26 fiscal year. And I'm not sure when that was actually put into the plan because every year we revisit this plan. Um, but that position is in there, and roughly the cost of that one position alone is 167,000 per year. So obviously that's going to have an effect on the follow up years. And so on a side note, um, I've looked at that, and the way that position is written into our multi-year financial plan is to either be another GIS member, which is our plainclothes unit, or an actual sergeant for the detachment. And there's significant advantages of each one. And the way it's written into the plan is it can be either or. The decision's not made right now, but at some point, should that come to fruition, we'll have to make that decision whether it's going to be a sergeant or a plainclothes officer.
Is that based on population or just service levels, or what
So
makes you decide?
yeah, so it's probably based on the increase in workload that we're seeing. I think as of this year, compared to last year, there's been a 6.4% increase in workload to the members. Let me just double check that. Yeah, there's been a 12% increase in crime, and a 6.4% increase in workload. So um, now, with that said, when I say 12% crime, I believe that is prior to this fiscal year. So we're kind of lagging a year behind there, but there's definitely a 6.4% increase in workload. And I would hazard a guess that if we're to look at today's workload, it's even higher than that compared to the start of the fiscal year. So that probably had a lot to do with why that was proposed and written into that.
Tom?
Yeah, just a quick calculation, your worship, costs of approximately $115,405 over this year for next year, and given approximately 90%, $90,000 is a 1% tax increase, then it looks like roughly 1.2% tax increase for the increased costs.
Anybody else? Tony?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I was gonna point that out as well. So, but if I could get you to cover the pooled costs again, I think that was a very good explanation to the public. So we're talking about K Division, which is Alberta. We're talking 50 communities, 15,000 population and less. Is that comes up to the 100% of those pooled costs?
Correct.
And then 70% of the costs, is that the split between province and the feds?
Correct. So it is broke down on the sheet. It gives you 100% of the cost
Right.
when we looked at the pooled section, and then it actually separates out after the 30% is covered by the federal government. You're then left with subtotals for each year.
Yeah, so the province carries, the provincial cost then is 70% of
Correct.
that number then.
Yeah.
And then it drills down to Drumheller. So is that what,
Yeah.
divided by 11 or 12 members then? Or?
So we have 11 positions. So what they do is they look at all the total pooled costs and all the members in the division, and they figure out cost per member, and then they look at how many members we have, and then we're responsible for the ratio of that cost like I say, we have 11 members, so
So you're prorated down to.
that's right.
Drumheller's prorated down to the
Correct.
11 members then.
And
yeah,
there's
so-
lots of advantages to that. And one reason they do the pooled cost thing is they say it's to control the peaks and valleys. For example, if we were to smash up 2 police cars today and write them off, you know, the town of Drumheller is not paying for those 2 police cars on a 1-to-1 ratio, so to speak. It's captured in the pool costs, and it just controls, you know, the peaks and valleys because you know all detachments are really contributing to that pool sort of thing. If that makes sense.
Right. My other question there then, have the feds always done, has it always been a 30-70 split to the provinces, or is that increased or decreased over the years, or?
So as long as I can remember, it's been 70 or 30, but also I have only been dabbling kind of with the finance side for the last 4 or 5 years. So I don't know how far back that goes.
Okay. Okay. Good, thanks.
Hopefully that answered your questions.
Yeah.
Anybody else? So kind of often on a different topic of finance, ironically, I got a question about this yesterday of, we know of drug houses. I mean, everybody in this community can tell you probably who. And they asked me, like, why are they allowed to continue? And I guess I didn't really have an answer, except I said, we definitely have a problem with our judicial system. That is a kind of a catch and release. It's not that the RCMP don't know about these. It's just they get them to courts, they get out, they repeat. Is there a better answer that I could give, or?
I think that is a great answer. I think the judicial system and the if we call it the revolving door plays a bit of a role here. I have learned this over the last few years as well. Um, Sometimes what certain town officials and city officials hear is not what we hear either. I've talked to many people kind of after the fact about, you know, learning that they had a concern if they've ever called the police, and they haven't, but they've told other people. Um, Even I've learned, you know, that some of our media outlets here in town learn about certain things before we do. Now they're great, you know, engaging us when we have to be engaged in things. But I think sometimes there might be a case where some people are not calling the police, maybe when it would be ideal, and maybe too they think, well, the police probably know about it because I'm sure my neighbors called or someone else called, you know, so I'm not going to make that call. But my advice to the public is we can't deal with it if we don't know about it. And if you're seeing a concern, please let us know. We are doing some great drug work along with criminal work, and I will gladly add it to the list of things that need to be dealt with, but we have to know about it first. So um, I will say as well, in addition to that, pardon me, we are aware of um, drug activity in certain households in the town. And we have gone in there and we have made arrests. We have pulled people out. And sometimes the next day or a couple days later, there's other people doing the same thing at the same location. And so we deal with that as best we can. But there's almost a revolving door right in the you know, certain residential areas of people coming and going from the same houses and so on. And unfortunately, that's somewhat common with drug houses, so to speak, and stuff like that.
Okay, and another thing is we are not, Drumheller is not the only community. Like, this is happening across Alberta, across Canada, actually.
Yeah.
And again, so I reiterate with people, it's, you know, we have a great detachment that's working hard on this. It just seems like you clean up one and it more follows. So I think I just would like you to just reinforce that you guys aren't the only detachment in Alberta that are dealing with this.
Yes, and I can verify that, Mayor. The drug problem is widespread. It is right across Alberta, and you know, I don't pay too much attention to other places in the country, but I'm sure they're dealing with the same thing, and it is a problem right now. And I will say this community is no more dangerous or no different than any other community I've been in. It's definitely here. We're dealing with it. Um, is it, are we ever going to stomp it out sort of thing? I don't think so, but we're going to do our best to do that. So, yeah, definitely it's here.
Okay, any other questions? All right, well, thank you as always for your update and your report and looking after the residents and businesses of our community. We're most grateful for all the work you and your detachment do, and keep up the great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, now speaking of budgets, let's move on to 7.2.1, please, Victoria. Do you need a minute to get organized? Oh, there we go. Okay.
So this is regarding the 2024 capital budget and 10-year capital plan. And in front of the council, this is the just the capital plan for the general operation, general public works, as the council already previously approved the water and wastewater capital plan. So I'm going to give you some pretext, and then after that, I will go to the capital plan by departments. So overall, we are talking about 32 new projects totaling $4.43 million next year, including $1 million that will be funded by federal and the federal gas tax, as well as the MSI, the Municipal Sustainability Initiative. Let me see here. So let me skip this. Sorry, that's some time delay when I move this. Okay. So the plan that present in front of you is not the total assets management plan. It is just the plan that the administration comes up with that address the immediate needs of the capital's requirements for the town. And we also present some projects that is grant dependent. When I say grant dependent, it means that the administration is planned to apply for grants or in the process of applying for grants. And those are the projects that are currently in front of council, just want to get a approval in general. If the funding we actually receive, we will come back to councils and present that, and then ask for council for final approval for the funding formula. So sometimes we might need to contribute 1/3 or 50%, etc. So again, we will present it back again. And let me skip to this. So this is the pie chart of how much the town has in terms of reserve. So right now it's about $29 million. And as you can see that those are the reserve that's specific for certain programs. So for instance, we have reserve for water, sewer, contingency, building, equipment, transportation, storm drain, and other small reserve as well. So those are the reserve that we plan to use, or in a good years, we will keep building it up, or sometimes that we will use the reserve to address any immediate or emergency capital programs or projects. So those. Okay, so okay, let me skip this here. Okay. So in this chart, it shows the long-term debt positions of the town of Drumheller. So the top line, the blue line, is actually the provincial's legislation under the MGA, how much we can borrow. So this is the limit, like basically the credit limit. And then the yellow line is based on the council policy. We can only borrow up to 60% of the provincial's legislations. Of course, this is again could be revised by council if needed to, but right now this is the policy that we follow. And then the bottom one is basically our debt level. Right now, our debt is up to $6 million, but we are anticipating that we will be borrowing more to $12 million in 2024 and 2025 for 15 millions. As you can see, we are getting close to the council's imposed limit. So currently, and this is the graph that shows our existing debts. We have this, the one for the water treatment that is will be maturing in 2027, but we have payments up to 2038 for the sanitary lift station in East Cooley. Again, you can see the interest rate varies because it depending on the time we sign on to the debentures. And then the balance is as of at the end of December 2022. I think I have a question there.
Arthur would just add them at the end. But if you want on this topic, go ahead.
Okay, just one question on the debt. I'm just wondering, were these local improvements? I can't remember if so. We didn't just borrow a bunch of money and do the project. These were local improvements paid for by the residents as well, were they? Or I can't remember.
No, Tom, Councilor Zarisky, these were all things that the town of Drumheller undertook. If there were local improvements, they were usually for services, like the servicing piece of it. But these are like the water and wastewater ones were all general where we received grants for some of them, and the town undertook borrowing for the remainder of it.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Just for a little bit more clarity, if you scroll back to see that chart, it does say that, go back. I think it was line 2 of that chart. Yeah, it says Rosedale, Cambria, water distribution, local improvement. So,
Sorry, that is the only one that in there.
Okay.
I thought as you were scrolling through, I thought, yeah, that's the only one. And then there are also, if people are connecting to like the extension of water transmission line Cambria to East Cooley, they do pay for a connection that does pay for a little bit of it, but it's very, very small.
thank you.
Patrick?
Just quickly, when we look at our projected debt and going to from 6 million to 12 million next year, that's the portion for the flood mitigation? That's our portion? Is that what we're projecting there?
Yes, 5 million for the flood, and then also the one that we were at one point we were talking about borrowing for the water and wastewater, but now that we're going to borrow internally, so it will be about $1 million less than we anticipated.
Great, thank you.
Just to make it clear, though, we are well under what the province, through the Municipal Government Act, like we're allowed up to 33 million based on them, and right now we're at 6 million, so we're well below. And now we're going to try and get some of this infrastructure caught up. Okay.
Yep. So right now it's based on $33 million. That is the provincial limits. So. So this is the chart that shows the breakdown of the capital budgets compared to 2023 approved budget. So last year's the council approved $2.55 million for water and wastewater and 5.8 for general capital. Total capital budget of 8.35. And then in this 2024 proposed budget, the water and wastewater is 4.13 million, and the general capital 4.43. So the total capital is about 8.56 million. So it is not a significant jump, but it's kind of like the breakdown for waters and general capital is kind of shift a little bit. And at this point, based on the size of the budget, we do not anticipate we need to finance for that, as long as we are going to impose 3% increase on the general tax revenues. But then after hearing the RCMP presentation, that number might change a little bit, but we will have that conversation again for the O&M, the operating budget next week. Okay, and then I am going to speak to the capital plan by department. Hold on a second. Oops. Can you see okay with this? Or is this too small?
Yep, no, that works.
So general administrations, that would be one additional project that we might need it. It is about $15,000. This is a software that will be required for the new short-term rentals. So even though I believe it is a license fees, right? Okay, but then for the first year, we will treat it as a capital because it's a new asset, new software. So, but then after that, we will treat that as a license fee. But for the first year, it would be an additional $15,000. So
So that's just a one-time
for the first year for
for the first year, and then
yep.
it's just a small fee after that.
Yes. Okay. Any questions on the administrations?
Nope, we can
Okay,
keep going.
Good. So enforcement services, $102,000 for the 2024. One truck, sorry, two trucks, right? One truck and one workstations. Yeah. Okay. No other, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Lisa.
So if I understand that right, we're responsible to buy the trucks for the RSMP or enforcement, but they take care of all the maintenance?
No, this is for enforcement
By law?
services, Greg's area.
Okay.
Yeah, the RCMP supplies all their own equipment, and then including maintenance and stuff. And we just pay the cost, part of the pool's resources that the staff sergeant spoke of earlier. So
Thanks.
So this is replacement of an existing municipal enforcement truck that is 18 years old, 17 years, 13 years old, so that is well past its lifespan.
Okay,
Okay.
and then the next one would be fire protections. Total revised ask would be 454,500. That included pumper tanker, the new vehicles, the new command vehicles, new software, thermal imagers, the brush, and the studio. The brush. Sorry, I missed that. Yep.
Tom?
So the pumper tanker East Cooley has gone from 900,000 to 150,000. So we're just buying two wheels, or?
Numbers is risky, sir. The exorbitant price of new fire vehicles. We're searching on alternatives in either used or demos or vehicles with some use but are still viable and can be used for fire services. Sorry.
That's exactly it. So the original plan was an $850,000 pumper tanker. With the financial constraints and in consultation with the senior leadership team, we decided to look at a used vehicle in the market. We did find a used vehicle in the market that is very similar to the vehicle that was red tagged, and that would give us a stopgap measure for 2 or 3 years, so we can maintain services at the same level they are now in a much more cost-effective manner.
Tony?
Yeah, so similar question on the pumper truck. That's a good explanation. The rescue unit as well, that's firm at 190, or these are just numbers. I guess I'm looking at the equipment evaluations report that was done. And is the 5-year projection here, is it including all of our upgrades along the way? Cause we're looking at about 500,000 a year to kind of keep pace with that.
There is in the 10-year capital plan that's been developed, there is a replacement schedule for those, larger apparatus. We will probably have to rejig it again a little bit more again next year because of where we're moving that delayed vehicle to. So we may have to modify that actual plan, but currently we do have a plan for replacement.
Oh, and is that it reflected in this 5-year capital plan at
It
500
is.
a year?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually, some of the larger apparatuses in that $900,000 range again, so, but we have opportunities to defer, and we're deferring this one. There's other fleet mapping opportunities that we may have with a good harder look at our resources.
Okay, good.
Just curious on the command vehicle, it's dependent on ops budget, which we haven't even done yet. So we can't really approve this without knowing that.
Yes, well, the command vehicle is for, if we do decide to bring on, because in the operational plan, there is an additional staff member. And for the on-call vehicle and so on is that additional vehicle. Now, that's all contingent on again, yes, that operational budget being approved.
Okay, so if this comes to us next week and we approve it, that's subject to, correct? Okay. Anybody else on this one? Okay, thanks, Darian.
No worries.
All right, let's carry on.
So the next one is common services. The total ask is $1.3 million. That includes some of the equipment, heavy equipment like fleet vehicles, the public works building, concrete crushings, the remediations for the old hospital and the old public works yard, and the general engineering services.
Tom?
Yeah, just wondering if Kevin could explain kind of to the viewers more than anything, the deal that municipalities get on vehicles. Cause it's considerably less than
Yeah, it
Joe
is
going to
less,
the dealership, right?
Councilor's risky. The percentage, I can't give you a percentage on that, but anybody we deal with, we get a municipal, finance and sure that it's, probably, I'm thinking about 25% right off the cost that you and me would get it for.
Crystal?
And the concrete crushing, that's what has been used for the rails to trails specifically. Most people are going to recognize from out to Rosedale, correct? And so this is going to help with the finishing of the rails to trails.
Yeah, it's basically what we're doing is we're crushing the concrete that's up at the landfill right now. In turn, we use it for, sub-base material. So we could use it for, trails and paths. We can use it for sub-base for roads. So it's something we will save money on. It's an investment, but we save money on it.
Anybody else? Okay.
Just to add to Kevin's point. So when we bring concrete in from a site, so if we excavate a road and take the sidewalk up, so if you landfill it, we pay $67 a ton to landfill it. But if we bring it in with the idea that we divert it for concrete crushing, we pay $2 a ton. I think that's the rate. Should know that. But so it actually makes sense, financial sense for us to try to reuse the material. Plus, we have historically sold it to contractors or used it as a way to help lower the cost for road construction by crushing the concrete and then using it, as Kevin says, for sub-base material. So yeah. The fact that we used it for the rails to trails last year was just an added bonus for that material. So
Tony?
So just to point out the reclamation costs on the old hospital site and the public works site, we have 825,000 in there. That's going to be sufficient, and again, that's going to be recoverable on a sale of the cleaned up land, right?
it's sufficient there. Will it all be recoverable? It depends on the value that we can sell the land for. And essentially what we're doing is we're taking the material, the plan is, and why we're grouping them together is that the material that's contaminated at the old hospital site is contaminated solely because it's within 300 meters of a water course. So we're going to take it, excavate it from the old hospital site, take it up to the old public works site, bury it there and at the old public works site, we have two issues. And that one is hydrocarbon contamination, which is fuel spillage. But the other and far more important and tricky one is actually salt contamination from the road salts from years and years of that. And so taking the material from the old hospital site to use to cover up the excavations that were taken out for the salt and hydrocarbons from the old public works. The hydrocarbon contaminated soil can go to our landfill and be soil farmed. But if I recall, the salt contaminated site material has to go to a facility near Brooks, unfortunately. And so there's a lot. So most of that is actually hauling costs to haul the material out of Drumheller to a approved site by Alberta Environment.
All right, Lisa.
So Daryl, just for the listening public, because I'm sure they'll ask. So you're taking contaminated soil and placing it in another spot that's contaminated. How are you able to do so?
So it's only considered contaminated. So if the old hospital site was 301 meters away from the water, from the Red Deer River, it would not be considered a contaminated site at all. It's only because and it's actually the contamination has to do with the old incinerator that was on site, and that material is detrimental to fish. So it's not detrimental to humans, livestock, anything else, just to fish. So if we can take it away, and the regulation says if you're more than 300 meters away, you do not have to actually treat it at all. It could have stayed. So if it was at the consortium site, for instance, we wouldn't have to do anything with it. So.
Okay, thank you.
So the next one would be the road transport. I just would like to bring the attention is that there's two projects. The second one called Street Improvement Program Constructions and the Sidewalk Rehab Program. These two projects will be funded by MSI's and gas tax fund. So that's why it's highlighted. And then the rest will be coming out from the general tax support. So such as the street improvement program for engineering, the replacements of the decorative street light, and then the town beautifications, the Highway 10 bridge, the Highway 10 bridge deck rehab, as well as the Star Mine suspension bridge, totaling $935,000 for this department.
Tony?
Just a question, with respect to the bridges, we're on Highway 10. Is this our jurisdiction or the province?
It's our jurisdiction. So Bridge 9, 10, and 11 are the town of Drumheller's responsibility. And this is deck replacement on Bridge 10, the middle one. And this is something we do every 5 or so years. We replace a bridge deck on there.
Yeah, if I may add to that, so it's something we do, like Daryl says, 4 or 5 years, depending on the wear. So last year we looked at it, it was quite bad, so we have to for sure put a new sub deck on there.
Okay, and the other bridges belong to the province then?
That's correct. Bridge 1 through 8 belong to the province. And I believe we're actually meeting with the province to discuss some of those bridges this week because they are planning to redo a number of them over the next 8 or so years. So there could be more information forthcoming on that.
Stephanie?
I'm just wondering, sorry, if the $50,000 is enough for the replacement of decorative streetlights, or if we're just doing some of them, not all of them?
The $50,000 will help us right now to install 3 more streetlights in the downtown core. That project will start later this week. That will cover a temporary light installation.
Thank you.
Crystal?
And just to clarify, because there's carry forwards for the street improvements and sidewalk rehabilitation. So the numbers for 2024 is an add-on to those carry forwards, correct? Okay. And those carry forwards, most of that was covered by MSI and tax fund? Okay.
Yes, right now they're in reserve, and I believe Public Works want to do a tender all at once, right?
That's correct. We'll do the tender. Yep.
Right, because we didn't do any this year, street improvement, correct, or sidewalk?
We did not do any as in 2023 at all.
Okay, thank
Lisa?
So the replacement of the decorative streetlights downtown and the amount that's associated, is that kind of like an in and an out? So when we get the money from ATCO, I'm assuming that there's gonna be, we had discussion about a reserve being set up, so is that money then gonna go back into the capital budget?
I think our first step on that, Lisa, so yes. However, what we're doing is we've asked ATCO after our meeting, last week's meeting, to ask ATCO to actually provide us with an updated cost estimate of the replacement for lighting. So again, that's they taking over all the downtown decorative streetlights and replacing rail wiring and things. And so we're just waiting for that cost because I suspect that cost, so we were getting around $725,000 for going to investor or co-invested lighting. I suspect that pretty much all of that will go back to ATCO for the installation of new lights downtown. And we might end up having to pay even another 100 or 200,000 on top of that. And I'm just speculating based on where we were with our last estimate a few years ago.
As you can see that the multi-year projects on the decorative lights is that for next year is 50,000, 25 would be 200,000, and 2026 $300,000.
Just to, will the bid be out like January, February, so that we're, like the request for, people, the street work program, so that we're not putting it out late in the year?
Yes, your worship, I think that's, Kelsey's handling that and she's, got, all her information now. She's got the engineering reports. As far as I understand, we also know the roads that we're doing, so that'll be out, not long after the capital budget is passed.
Okay, and then included in those are some of the sidewalk.
Yes, I think we have $300,000 in there. Let's see, I'll just look again here for that. $175,000 on the sidewalks
Okay, plus the 335 that we had last year.
from last year. That's correct, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Lisa?
So just on that thought, Kevin, does the sidewalk include extending the sidewalk along Fifth Street where we have the big cement pillars there for that trail system meet? Was that South Railway Ave? Or
Right by Liquorland there? So, yeah,
I'm not
Across the street?
aware of the replacements of them sidewalks at this time.
I think I think the answer to that is that it's about trying to do a better intersection design. So we won't, there's not enough physical space to be able to do something on the east side of Fifth Street, but we're going to work on a sidewalk so that you can get over to the west side and go down there where there's already an existing sidewalk. The area in front of the church doesn't allow us enough space to be able to put a sidewalk in there, in the parking lot.
Yeah, it is raised.
transportation though, just changed the crosswalk. Yeah. So maybe put that on to research. Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding with conversations with Rails to Trails, Alberta Transportation was changing that whole intersection and putting crosswalks all four directions in that.
Yeah, and that's actually
Okay,
what I'm talking about
okay,
as well. Yeah.
okay.
But it's not there won't be a sidewalk on the east side of the street that goes down Fifth Street. So it'll be on the west side.
Perfect. Okay, any other comments on that one? All right, let's move on to next one.
So the next one will be the air transportation's total budget gas $500,000, 540,000, including the fuel tank farm, the fuel POS systems, as well as the airport basements foundation remediations.
The airport farm or fuel tank farm is really about a safety hazard, right, Kevin?
Yeah, exactly. So we've got a fuel farm there now, which is, has 2 tanks. They are over their lifespan. The proposal is to remove the tanks, put new above ground tanks and, put new points of, sales there. So it's a complete package.
And the point of sale system will actually probably increase our sales, which we've been increasing quite well over the last couple of years, but it should really increase because then they will be able to have access right there, correct?
I would hope so, your worship.
Okay. All right, no questions there. We'll keep moving, Victoria.
Okay, so the next one is stormwater. So no new 2024 projects for the stormwater. So just carry on the Sterling Ditch and Neck Mine for $190,000 as a carry forward. And then the next projects will be in 2025 for the stormwater master servicing study. So the next one would be for the cemetery. So it would be a survey for $25,000 for 2024, and then all other projects will be in 2025.
And that cemetery survey, is that about the surveying to create, like exactly what is that, Kevin?
From what I understand, the survey is to get a new software so you can access your cemetery plots easier.
So I think it's actually, I was gonna say it's a user satisfaction survey, but that's not it. It's actually surveying all the plots. There are a number of plots. The cemetery is 100+ years old. And so there are a number of plots that we have a very good idea of where people were buried 25 to 40 years ago. But beyond that, we don't have a great handle on it. So it's actually surveying every space. Palliser is actually, the Palliser regional area is actually done that with a number of other municipal cemeteries where they've worked with our GIS provider to basically provide the plots, do the historical designation of those, and do things like even photographs of headstones and things like that, so that you can then make that public for the public to be, so genealogy clubs and things like that to be able to search for people's grave sites themselves. So it helps us with really the old historical stuff that's happened, but it also will help us for the future to be able to better manage where plots are and it's not only for just in-ground burials, but it's also the columbariums as well, so, and scatter gardens.
Okay. Next one, Victoria.
So the next one is the recreations and parks. So this one is a bigger, does a bigger list of the projects. So start off with the arena sewer relining, and then the BCF prime acoustic treatment, the nail trail development, the spider mower for the berms, urban forest implementations, and then the conversions of the CM bridge to the pedestrian bridges. And then I think that's it for this.
Tom?
Yeah, the only one that I don't understand there is the outdoor ball and sports field complex planning. And that's listed as 2029. And I don't know if I'm reading that or I understand what that is, but I look at the Parks and Recreation Master Plan that we did, and it talks about things like Class A ball diamonds, sports fields, trails, parks, playgrounds, outdoor pickleball, pump track, mountain bike trails, dedicated dog off leash. So am I incorrect in saying that that's in that category and we are not even going to look at those until 2029? What am I missing here?
I'm gonna comment on that because I had the same thing, but I think that from what I understand, they're gonna review the whole, we're just looking at approving this 2024 and they're gonna reevaluate the 25 to the next 10 years on a more directive scale according to the council directives and initiatives going forward. Correct?
Yeah, it's somewhat. So I think Tom's question is, if this is a council priority because of the Parks and Rec master plan, why are we not looking at it for 5 more years? And Mayor Kohlberg's comment is, well, we didn't say we weren't going to look at it, but we did place it in 29, right? So I think from our standpoint, and I actually talked to Rick about this, about the idea of trying to move it forward. And I think he was trying to look at what are some of the things we need to do next year. So to Mayor Kohlberg's comment, let's do some of the things in 24 to then reevaluate what we can do and perhaps move it forward in 25 to 25 from 29. So
Crystal?
So that's kind of the same with the Aquaplex facility replacement planning is happening in 24. Sorry, am I in the right year? 25. Um, and then a pool boiler replacement as well for 350. So shouldn't we be doing that plan in 24? Because if that plan comes out with something different for the outdoor pool, is it even worth having that $350,000 boiler replacement, right?
I think this is a council decision on it is because the outdoor pool boiler, we're talking about $350,000. Some at the administrations, we kind of hesitant with the amounts of the investments to put into the outdoor pool just for the boiler. So and then recognizing that our financial restraint, $350,000, we were thinking that maybe it's a better time for discussion in 2025. But if council thinks that it is a must, it has to be done, we can convert it to 2024.
Oh, yeah, no, I wouldn't agree the boiler replacement needs to happen in 24. I'm thinking the facility replacement planning, the feasibility study, it's not happening until 2025. I don't know. That's just, I don't know if anyone else has opinion.
Lisa?
Well, I would agree that we should bump up the planning. And I think we've had discussions in regards as to what we're doing with the outdoor pool. Until I think we've made a decision on that, I don't think we should be putting over $250,000 into the budget for 2025. And in fact, I think we should probably just take it out of there for right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think if we put another dime into that pool, we're gonna be much liked. So, anyways, I think you guys should reconsider figuring out how to put that new aquaplex facility replacement planning feasibility studies somewhere in next year's budget.
so
I mean,
so
it's,
move
we
up.
know it's not something that's gonna get built. I mean, it's a 20, I don't care if it's a $10 million project, we don't have 10, we don't have 20, we don't have 30, we gotta figure it out, so, if we have a plan in place, at least the lobbying can start and the efforts can start being made. Anybody else?
I would agree if that was the direction of council. I think this is probably something we need to do, considering the current circumstances.
And I think with regards to the boiler replacement, I think he was stuck in there simply as a, hey, we don't want to forget about this. We need to, but we absolutely need to have a good, fulsome discussion in 24 about what we think we want to do with this outdoor pool. And also gives us a bit of time to actually go, is 350 really the number for it, right? And because that number, I think, got all of us with a lot of sticker shock. So I think that, so my suggestion would be to leave it in 25 with the idea that we're coming back and having a good, thorough discussion about what we are going to do in 2024. It doesn't mean we can always pull it out in the 25 budget or when we make a decision. So,
Okay.
Tony, you look perplexed. No.
So if I understand correctly, is that we're going to move the Aquaplex facility feasibility study $175,000 from 2025 to next year,
Yes,
right?
please.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to, I mean, we just can't, that swimming pool, I think, is older than I am, so, and I need repairs still. That's
Okay.
somewhere I'm gonna go, so.
And then the last one is the CDSP for the block party trailer replacement, but we are aiming like past 5 years from now for $10,000. So, but that concludes the 2024 request, and then the next one would be the grants dependent. So I believe these projects are council's directions that we will only proceed if we get provincial grant or federal grant. So the first one is for the replacement of the bridge. And they are very expensive. In 2025, we're talking about $500,000, and then in 2026, we're talking about $8 million. And then 5 years from now on will be additional $9.5 million. And again, this initiative is because of the price tag. We definitely need provincial partners on that, and that is why it's grant dependent. Okay. And then the next one is the recreations. All these projects, the wayfinding signage, the Hoodoo's parking improvement, and the Aquaplex facility replacement, all these projects, again, it will be grant dependent. And as I mentioned before, we will come back to council if we ever get the grant funding approval, then we will come back for directions and decision on the funding formula. And then the last but not least would be the downtown area revitalization plan. Some of the projects has some reserve set aside for that, but that is some new projects in 2024 as well. So again, this is just for council informations, or unless you have other directions, I think administrations are committed to actively looking for grants to support these projects.
I think just one thing on to Victoria's comment. So we've had some internal discussion about the downtown revitalization. So downtown revitalization for everyone's benefit. So the province gave the town of Drumheller money in 2019 to be able to do a study, and there was some other funding in there to be able to try to make our downtown more pretty, I guess, for tourism stuff. There was always, and it was Alberta Tourism that gave us the funding for it, with the idea that you would also get funding when the plan was completed, that we would be able to go back and say, hey, we need some actual funding to now make this happen. So through a variety of things, we kind of forgot about that, to be frank. And so really, from our standpoint, we really want to go back and talk to the province about, remember when you said, when you gave us money for this with the idea that we'd be able to get more money? And we did get some funding. For instance, the plaza, which was a DARP initiative, did get funding from the province during COVID, and we did get money from the federal government for that as well. But now, as we're getting into these road projects, same thing, we want to go back and get them to actually help fund it, because we can't afford to do both downtown revitalization street improvements plus regular street improvements. So either we make a decision that we try to do grant funding for it, or we take our gas tax and LGFF funding and actually dedicate that for downtown. Second part to that is that we show that we have the sort of money for the connector road. And we've talked about the connector road, which is one of the pieces. And really, one of our challenges is that I thought about it is that, so we're going to create a road that's going to bring more people downtown, and then we're going to start ripping up the roads downtown, and that's going to create mayhem. So we're going to bring more people downtown, but have less places for them to be. So we want to take a look at trying to actually reverse that and start improving the streets downtown first. And that ties nicely into the street light replacement project, because then you can do sort of those things earlier on. With the last piece is the actual connector. And in a perfect world, if we had enough grant funding, we could do that over a couple of years, but we're thinking 2 to 3 years to be able to do the downtown streets, then the connector road. So that's kind of what our suggestion is for council to consider.
Crystal?
So how does that affect the main station for the rails to trail that we are hoping to get built next year near that connector road?
It doesn't affect it. We would still be able to do it, because we're still planning to pave that piece from 5th Street East to 2nd Street West. So we would just leave a piece where the connector road is as gravel instead of actual asphalt, but we'd be able to do the station.
Okay, and then my other question is the wayfinding signage project. It was kind of an idea that it would also be integrated with the rails to trails. So is that going to be another year delayed for signage, or is this that grant applying for a study on wayfinding signage?
That's what this is. This is the grant. So
Okay.
if, and I spoke to Kelsey about it this morning, if were successful for a grant in 24, then we would bring that back to council to say, hey, we need to actually see if we can move this up. But right now, we put it in 25 because we just have a bit of concerns about that, and we don't have any grant funding, so.
Lisa?
So on that connector road, if I'm hearing you right, you said it's gonna be gravel until other upgrades can be done?
The piece of trail that crosses where the connector road would go. So
Okay.
we're talking about the paving the trail, the rails to trails from Fifth Street East to Second Street West. So it would all be asphalted, except for the piece where the roadway is going to, where the connector road would go. We would just have that as a, much like the piece from Rosedale to Walmart. It would just be a hard gravel surface.
Okay, I guess I'm just disappointed. I know a lot of people have been looking forward to having that connector road. So there's no way it can get done and just say local traffic only or
So if
direct
council,
traffic to go
that's
right?
just that's our suggestion, right? To do it sort of so that we don't bring more traffic downtown. But if council would really want to do that connector road first, right? Like then that's the council's decision to do that. So we still have land issues to deal with there, both with a private landowner plus CN. So and leasing land from CN for a trail is different than acquiring land for a road from CN. So we haven't even, I don't think we've broached that subject with them yet about about acquiring that land. So, but if the council wanted to do that first, then, we would do that first.
So my only comment is, after being a downtown business owner, there's only so many ways you can get out of downtown, which caused a lot of confusion. You can't turn left by fast gas. You can only go, you can go on Third Ave there, you can, but all the other ones, it just seems like they get lost in residential and whatnot. So I think it would be a good idea to perhaps not bump it so far down the road. Just simply because of that, And if you're worried about more people going downtown, I mean, at this point in time, I think I'd rather have more people down there shopping, spending money, compared to when construction starts. You'll have a lot less downtown. I mean, the city of Wetaskiwin went through the same thing and damn near killed their local economy. So,
I think correct me if I'm wrong, Daryl, I think it would be a plan to just do like center, be done, then third the next year, be done. And I think that's where we just got to do a lot of lobbying and get support from the province so that we can, maybe do two of the projects, correct?
Yep.
Two of the projects in 1 year, and then, so hopefully still have that done over the next 24, 25 is the goal. But yeah, they've got to solve that, the land issues, and I hate to see us delay everything, because those, I don't know if we saw how hard it was to get the deal with CN just for the rails to trails, now dealing with them on an actual land thing. So at least if we can keep moving in case that stalls a bit. So I think it's just kind of trying to make sure we just keep moving forward.
And the other thing is council could say to administration, we'd like you to dedicate the MSI/LGFF and gas tax money to downtown streets, the DART project for the next couple of years. So then that way that actually takes away from the potential of grant funding. I would still like us to lobby and advocate to the provincial government for funding for it. But if council felt that they wanted to do that instead, we could certainly get that done in a couple of years' time. So.
And being on the side of that door, they're the ones that initiated that whole thing. They're the ones that brought that to us to deal with the downtown. So I think hopefully they're going to be the ones that help fund some of it. Steph, did you have something? Tom?
Yeah, I was just going to comment on the grant funding, and I hope people appreciate how difficult it is for a small community like ours to do any major infrastructure projects without the participation of other levels of government. And it is so frustrating that we have to go hat in hand to the provincial government and the federal government to be able to fund bridges, to be able to fund roads, to be able to fund all this stuff. Because the reality is, I mean, and we've said this many times, I mean, a 1% tax increase in Drumheller gives us a whopping total of about $90,000, which doesn't go anywhere when you're looking at multi-million-dollar infrastructure projects. So all I can say is anybody, if they have any opportunity to speak with federal representatives, provincial representatives, you know, tell them the plight that we are in, very similar to every other small community. When we want to do any kind of major infrastructure, it's just absolutely cost prohibitive.
Patrick?
Just a thought, if we did take on some of the downtown project with DARP, is there infrastructure of ours or even third-party infrastructure like carbon fiber or gas that would also be upgraded at the time or would be an opportunity too?
Our water lines are in the alleys and they were upgraded over the last number of years. I think we have sewer on Center Street, Kevin, and we've done some repairs over time, but we haven't looked at replacement of them, like, they're okay. The SuperNet goes down Third Avenue, which SuperNet is the high-speed internet for schools. That's Bell, and they've been doing constant upgrades over the last 5 or 6 years on it. And I don't know if there's anything else. Gas is in the alley, power's in the alley, so I think we're okay as far as that goes. We probably have a couple of things with respect to some land drainage with catch basins, so that would be part and parcel of the work anyway, so.
Tony?
Yeah, I'm just like to say I'm happy with the second draft here. We are down $1.5 million from the first draft. I guess my bigger concern would be, do you have the manpower to do all of this? We have 6.3 in carryover. We have 32 new projects in here for 4.4. Are we gonna get her done?
So yes, and I say that because some of our carryover is actually well underway. So I think there was one that Victoria had looked at before where Sterling Ditch is an example. Sterling Ditch is almost done, but it hasn't been fully completed yet. So that's a carryover. Our road work, adding last year's 2023 onto 2024. There's a little bit more effort, but it's all consultant driven, like the inspectors and things like that. There are projects related to vehicles and things like that. It's up to Darian or to Greg or to Kevin to be able to manage those individually. So it's not going to be easy, and we are looking for another project manager as we've been looking for the last year to actually fill that extra position that's capital funded. So our expectation is that we do actually have two project managers to be able to deal with the majority of this work. So yeah, there is a lot of work. There's no question. Right. So, and some of it's small, and small projects are just like big projects. They're just requires much effort. So.
Okay. Got any feedback?
Yeah, thank you so much for the council's input. So just to sum up, the changes will be about $190,000. So it would make the total capital request to $4.6 million. But the overall bottom line won't change, so we still don't need financing at this point. But I will bring back for the final versions at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, council, thank you. Can I get a motion to go in closed session, please, Steph?
I move that council close the meeting to the public to discuss personnel and organizational development as per FOIP 23, local public body confidences, FOIP 24, advice from officials, and FOIP 25, disclosure harmful to economic and other interests of a public body.
Seconder, Lisa, all in favor? Carried. Thank you everyone for being with us today, and we will be back here next Monday. Take care and have a great week.